Manana Sizu, half a day, Todo Samzu. This hearing by the Committee on Public Accountability, Human Resources, the Guam Buildup, Hagåtña Revitalization, Regional Affairs, Public Libraries, Telecommunications and Technology is called to order. It is now 9:01 a.m. For the record, and in accordance with 5 GCA, Chapter 8, subsection 8107, public hearing notices were sent out on Monday, January 25th, 2021, adhering to the 5-day notice, and a second public notice was sent on Thursday, January 28th, 2021, adhering to the 48 hours prior. In addition, this hearing was noticed on the legislature's website, www.guamlegislature.com. And I will note for the record that written testimonies may be submitted by emailing Senator Muña Barnes at guamlegislature.org, or you may hand deliver it to our office here at the Guam Congress Building, 163 Chalan Santo, Papa Hagåtña, Guam. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to share to you that on the agenda this morning is the appointment of Nolan G.T. Flores to serve as a member, the student representative of the Guam Public Library System Board of Directors, and Bill number 31-36 COR. Author is Senator James C. Moylan, Minority Leader, which is an act to add Section 4101.2 to Chapter 4 of Title 4 Guam Code Annotated relative to modernizing a process which would allow for the streamlining in the recruitment and hiring of law enforcement officers to be known as the Swift Appointment Modernization Act of 2021. Ladies and gentlemen, joining me here this morning are Speaker Sharif Terlahi, Manana Sizuis, Legislative Secretary Amanda Shelton. I have Minority Leader James Moylan, Senators Chris Torres, Tony Adden. I also see Senator Joanne Brown. Good morning. I hope I'm not missing anybody else. If I do, just please let me know. I see a couple of directors also from the administration. I see the Chief of Police, Chief Stephen Ignacio, and also the Chief of Department of Administration, Mr. Ed Byrne, and I think his Shane Knotts is there also. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining me. Also, the appointee, Mr. Nolan Flores. So before we start this, I know that we have to do some laundry list here, rules of engagement, and we ask that those testifying abide by the following: to broadcast from a quiet room with little to no interruptions, to broadcast from a room with adequate lighting, specifically to ensure the participant's face is visible and not backlit, to ensure participants' face is visible at all times, to be properly attired, and to use only respectful and professional language and conduct. Virtual backgrounds should not be utilized during public hearings. I ask everyone here to keep your audio on mute, please, until you are recognized. Please remain in the meeting room for any questions by my colleagues. And those who do not follow these rules of engagement will be asked to be removed from this meeting room. And with that being said, we will now move on to the first item of the agenda. And before I do that, I understand Senator Tello Tadekwi is in the room. Thank you very much. And from the Department of Corrections, I see Mr. Robert Camacho also. Thank you for joining us this morning. So we will go ahead and proceed with the appointment of Nolan G.T. Flores to serve as a public member, student representative of the Guam Public Library System Board of Directors. I understand there have been a couple of written testimonies, and I also see the director of the DD Council, Mr. Jermaine Alerta, who wishes to speak on behalf of Mr. Flores. So I'll go ahead and recognize Mr. Alerta at this time. And of course, for the record, please state your name, where you're from, and if you support the appointee or the bill or not. Mr. Lerda, please proceed. Good morning, Jermaine. Manana,
Good good
Jesus.
morning. Good morning. Thank you very much, Madam Vice Speaker. Good morning, everyone. Senators, members of the committee. I'm honored to be here to provide testimony on behalf of the nomination of Mr. Nolan Flores to serve on the Guam Public Libraries board. Well, I've known Nolan mostly through his participation in the Guam Youth Congress. I know many of the members here know about the Guam Youth Congress and probably are familiar with Mr. Flores being part of the Guam Youth Congress. But when I first met Nolan, he just shows a passion for public service. He works really well with his peers. I have observed him um, when he mingles with some of his fellow students from the University of Guam, and I know of his hard work and determination that he puts into being a member of the Guam Youth Congress. So I really do just want to put my full support behind Mr. Flores. I will be submitting written testimony, Madam Vice Speaker, to your office. I do want to share a little story about Mr. Flores. So back in 2018, so I'm a proud Southern High School graduate, and I was fortunate enough to attend the graduation ceremony for the class of 2018, and Mr. Flores was the valedictorian. And I remember sitting there listening to his speech, and I was, really, I was like, wow, this kid's good. I mean, I was proud that he's from Southern High School, but I was like, this kid's good. He's making very good points, and what was really important was he was able to connect with the audience, and he was, just giving words of advice at such a young age, giving words of advice to his classmates. But I remember, saying this kid's gonna go somewhere here on Guam. He's gonna be, we used a lot. He's gonna be one of the future leaders. And back in my past life as a political candidate, I had an event that day. It was at a coffee shop, and I went down after the graduation, and I was setting up, and Mr. Flores and his family had to kill time before they went to go have dinner for his graduation. So they came to the coffee shop, which wasn't open at the time, but yeah, just let them in, let them in. And I remember he walked in, and I was talking to one of my friends, and I said, dude, that is the kid. That's the valedictorian from the speech that we just saw today. And it was during election time in 2018, and my friend just happened to be a registrar for voting. So we said, "Hey, are you registered to vote?" He goes, "No, no, I'm not." I'm like, "Are you eligible to register to vote?" And he was like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Would you like to register to vote?" And he was like, "Sure." So we talked a little bit about while he was registering. We talked a little bit about his interest, what he wants to do, and sure enough, he spoke about public service, government. We're working in the government, something like that. And I said, "See, I knew from hearing this kid that he he has plans, right? He was gonna be he hopefully sitting in the seats that you guys are currently occupying, right? The senators here. So yeah, I have no doubt that he's going to bring, well, he has experience on the board, but I have no doubt that he's going to continue his hard work, continue his advocacy, and continue his service for the people of Guam. And hopefully he's able to be an example for those who are going to come after you and after him in public service. So I give him my 100% support, and I ask that you guys all confirm him expeditiously. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker and members of the legislature.
Jesus, Mossy, Jermaine. Uh, I don't have anybody else on the list to testify. And before I ask my colleagues to chime in, I just want to note for the record that there have been two letters, written testimonies in support for Nolan G.T. Flores. One is the administrative officer for the Guam Public Library System, which is Sandra M. Stanley, and also the administrative assistant for GPLS, which is June M. Applegate. So they have given their letters of support for Mr. Flores, and at this time, I don't have anybody else on the list, so I'm going to go ahead and acknowledge Nolan at this time. Manana Sizos, and good morning, Nolan. You may proceed with your testimony.
Sidus Masi, Madam Vice Speaker. I'd just like to thank Mr. Alerta for sharing his testimony. When I first asked him, I told him that that story would be said better over Zoom than through a written testimony. So Sidus Masi. Hafade and Manana Sidus, Vice Speaker Barnes, Speaker Terlahi, Senator Terlahi, Senator Shelton, Senator Duenas, Senator Ty Degree, Senator Adat, Senator Brown, and Senator Moylan. It was during my internship with the Public Policy Institute with you, Vice Speaker Barnes and Senator Castro, that I was first appointed to serve as the student representative for the Guam Public Library System's Board of Directors. So I find it very fitting that I'm sitting here today with you as our new oversight chair. All that I've learned during my time with PPI has served me incredibly well at GPLS, Situs Masi, Madam Vice Speaker. Firstly, I'd like to extend an Ndokuna Situs Masi to Imaga Hagas and Sigundu Magalahi for again placing their trust in me to serve our island on the GPLS Board of Directors. In the time since my confirmation in November of 2019, I've learned a great deal about GPLS's 70+ year history, its ever-evolving role today, and what it requires going forward to continue meeting the changing needs of our people. After getting up to speed with the state of GPLS, I worked closely with the acting director alongside fellow board members to begin addressing the long-standing challenges facing our libraries. Throughout this work, I made sure to engage at both the administrative and operations level. At the administrative and board level, I was elected as the board secretary and treasurer, and of course, worked to fulfill my duties as a board member to make critical decisions and guide the greater strategy of GPLS. During budget season, I coordinated the budget priorities of the board, prepared the budget presentation that was presented to the legislature, and advocated for increased appropriations to address these issues. I also wrote in support of a $500,000 federal archive digitization grant that GPLS successfully was awarded. At the operations level, I've developed close working relationships with many of the staff in order to understand the detailed challenges that they face and, more importantly, how best to address them. I also requested tours of each of the branches to gain a better understanding of the much needed maintenance and repair work throughout our island and the library branches. And of course, this is all a part of my duties as a board member and done within my first term since my expiration in August. But after way too many eyes for my liking, I would like to finally highlight the great and many recent accomplishments made by GPLS that are of course made possible by the support of this body and the executive branch, my fellow board members, Acting Director Melvin Wampet Borja, and most importantly, all the dedicated staff of the library. To you all, thank you for your continued commitment to greatness. In less than 2 years since its reorganization as an independent agency, GPLS completed the renovation of the Higatnya Main Library, relaunched the new and improved bookmobile, opened the Barrigada Archival Center, and repaired the Dededo, Agate, Maleso, and Zotnya branches, which are now all set to open to the community. Beginning last year, several of the branch libraries have been used by the Department of Labor in support of the PUA program due to their strategic island-wide locations. In light of the pandemic, GPLS has also adapted its services to remain accessible, and plans are now underway to expand technology and Wi-Fi capabilities at each of the branches for students who are distance learning. The list goes on. Nevertheless, much work remains to be done as we make progress on filling our board of directors and hiring a director librarian, which GPLS has not had for several years. And we continually find ways to offer more to our community, whether that's through improved online services or through closer partnerships with other GovCom agencies and community organizations. With this body's trust and confidence, I hope to continue my service on the GPLS Board of Directors in greater service of GPLS's critical role in our island as a premier center of information for our people. And of course, I'm here for any questions. Thank you.
Nolan, for your testimony. And before I yield to my colleagues, I first want to say thank you for stepping up to the plate. Thank you for accepting the Public Policy Institute. Thank you for working with both the minority leader at the time, and of course, our office and all our colleagues. And if there was one thing that impressed me with the work that you've done was being a part of the library, organizing the celebration before we had the COVID pandemic, and just literally overcoming the challenges that the celebration was undertaking, and making sure that when you were an MC, I was just admiring how you had to adapt, improvise, and overcome, but yet you pulled it off. You stood there firm. You didn't let anything weigh you down, and you just appreciated everybody that was there. And I said, this young man is going to go far. He was willing to take up the challenges, be at public hearings, organize stuff, be a part of the political arena. And I said, you're going to go a long way. And when your appointment came in from the governor, I said to our team that we were very, very appreciative of the work that you do, even at a young age, going to school, volunteering, just making it a point to be a part of the community's effort to supporting the library and just bringing the information, educational information out to our children. So I want to say thank you, Sijulis Masi. You have my support. And at this time, I'm going to go ahead and yield to our speaker, Speaker Therese Terlahi, if you'd like to have any comments or questions to our appointee at this time. Sige, muna.
Thank you, Sidus Masi. Manana Sidus Taurus. Mr. Flores, thank you for stepping up to accept this nomination. And Mr. Alerta, thank you for your testimony this morning. I'm glad you pointed out that he was the valedictorian of Southern High. Very proud about to have him here with us serving the government of Guam and the people of Guam. Mr. Flores, as I've watched you in your role as on the library board, I want to thank you for stressing the importance of the library's changing roles. And it really has changed. And we've seen this in the community. And you've I think, been able to do a good job of tying in your role as the youth representative or one of the younger representatives and social media and community and UOG. All of these you've tied together and you've highlighted the importance of the library to all facets of our community, the increased importance of the library as a learning center. And I'm just so thrilled to see that when you were posting on social media about the reopenings of these different branches in the villages, I think it couldn't come any sooner. We need it now. We need it, we need these learning centers to be open because of the changing way that the students are learning. And so all of you work towards that, I very much appreciate. And again, your involvement with the community. I see that you're doing part of the research for the Decolonization Commission. You're an intern during your internship and all of these things, the grant that you did for the digitization for the library's archive. It is our archive on Guam, and that is the place where we find our history. And so I'm so very glad that you're able to work on that as well and tie that all together. We have our important political status documents there. We've all of the records from the Guam legislature were transferred there over the past years. So I just want to thank you again for all the work that you've done and the progress that we've seen at the library, and to keep it up. And thank you for your public service.
Thank you very much, Speaker Terlahi. Before I ask the Legislative Secretary to speak, I want to acknowledge the presence of Senator Peter Terlahi, Manana Sizu's, Senator Terlahi, for joining us. And if I made a mistake on Senator Chris Duenas, I apologize. Senator Chris, thank you very much for joining us. So at this time, Legislative Secretary, I will acknowledge you. Please proceed.
Thank you very much, Vice Speaker Hafide. Congratulations on your reappointment, Mr. Flores. Thank you very much for your testimony, and you as well, Mr. Alerta. I appreciate it. Nolan, I've known you for a few years now, and I've seen you really involved in so many different things at school, at the University of Guam, and here in the Youth Congress, where you also serve as the chair of the Committee on Rules. So you have a lot of experience here in the Youth Congress and a lot of responsibility, I think. And I can see in you as a young person, very driven and very motivated to help our island. And I really appreciate that, because I see young people like you who are very serious and who can serve as a great example to others in our community. And something that you and I have discussed a little bit is having this kind of youth representative on all of our governing boards and commissions. And I'm glad that you are leading by example here and willing to take on this responsibility once again. And Nolan, you talked about how during the time of the pandemic, there have been some shifts in the library, and we've seen how important they have been as stations to help the Department of Labor and to help people get back to work, to find jobs, to apply for the unemployment assistance. And I see the library as, you know, continuing to change in this way to be a digital platform for people in our community. And I wanted to give you the opportunity to talk a little bit about that and what you see as the future for the public library system to expand their online catalogs, to expand the capabilities of the library to come along with the public into the digital age.
Sizos Masi, Senator Shelton. Yes, that's going to be a very important part going forward, even past the pandemic, as things are increasingly shifting online. So currently, I know that the library has a pretty decent catalog in coordination with the EBSCO host service, I believe, which is also what UOG utilizes. So that's the current status of it. And of course, the digitization grant is going to go a long way toward taking all the government documents from the legislature, from the executive branch, all the executive orders, and of course the decades of PDN material, PDN newspapers, of digitizing those and making them accessible online. And of course, in regard to, sorry, excuse the notifications dispensed. So, uh, yeah, so the current discussions at the last board meeting were how we can sort of adapt the archives and make it so that less need to be actually on site at the library and more can be accessible in person. And that same approach can be applied to such things as books, right? Books that haven't been touched physically at the library in so many years, so many decades. If we can find a way to put those online, make them accessible without even having to come to the library. And then we can free up space so that the library can be more focused on that technology aspect where we have more workstations. And then in speaking back to during my testimony, I mentioned the expansion of the technology services and the Wi-Fi capabilities. The ideal place that we see that serving in our community is where people can just come to the library, even during the pandemic currently, and not have to get down from your cars, and you can be able to access, let's say you need to do your schooling from your laptop, but you don't have internet at home, right? You can do that. And even surrounding households can take advantage of the Wi-Fi offered by the library should they so need. And then of course the bookmobile, we have discussions to figure out how we can expand the Wi-Fi capabilities there as well, because that's supposed to serve as a roving library, right? So going to the villages that we're seeing people don't really come from to visit the library. So maybe those farther away from the branches so that the bookmobile can go everywhere and provide those services. Yeah, Sizos Masi, I hope that answers the question.
Yes, thank you, Nolan. Very much. It answered the question, and I think you definitely have a lot on your plate, and you're on top of all of these things. So I look forward to what you will continue to do with our public libraries, because I hope that the libraries remain a place where we can experience new things, learn new ideas, and really have a sense of community and a sense of gathering, and that we continue for many years, because I remember how important the library was for me, how many hours I spent in the Agana Library after school doing research, studying, spending time there even with my friends. It's just a safe space to be able to gather and to research and to learn. And I want that for all of Guam's children. So thank you very much, Nolan.
Thank you very much, Legislative Secretary Shelton. Next, we have Minority Leader, Senator James Moylan, for any comments or questions, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Flores, thank you for your volunteering. You're doing great for our community, and I truly appreciate it. I'm glad you're accepting this nomination once again, and I'm looking forward to seeing your name come across on session floor and getting you to be able to continue the great job that you do. I appreciate it very much, and thank you again. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Senator Pito Terlahi, do you have any comments or questions? Senator Pito?
Thank you very much, Senator. Thank you. I just want to say, I just wanted to actually congratulate Nolan for being part of this educational enhancement, and I just want to thank him for taking the challenge to be part of to be part with the educational system for the longest time. I also want to thank all my colleagues and everybody else on that are on the that are participating for especially Jermaine Alerta for his wonderful testimony. I want to thank everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator Terlahi. Senator Chris Duenas, any comments or questions?
Jesus Masi, Madam Speaker, and you can call me Torres anytime. It's a good name. Jesus Masi, Jermaine, it's very nice that you came forward to give us some more insight into this very, very wonderful young man. I'm very happy this morning to also be able to meet Nolan. Buenos dias, Nolan. Magabzo na ako nekunukaw noon kwentos kifinu tomorrow bonito the boy. So I only have one question and one request from you. My question is, are you aware that your name has a meaning of champion, and who is your champion? And my second question is, or request is, I already know that you're going to be a Democrat senator. So I'm asking you to do something, do me a favor. Can you recruit one of your best friends? Because I know that you have good company that you keep that's a Republican, so that when you both win in the legislature, there'll be balance in the legislature. Sidus Masi, Nolan, really keep up the good work. It was beautiful to listen to all of your insight. And in closing, as I listened to your responses, there's only one thing I think the governor, didn't see here. I think actually your appointment should have been for the director. Sidus Masi, Madam Speaker.
Oh, thank you, Senator Duenas. Nolan, if you'd like to answer any questions there.
Jesus Masi, Senator Duenas, that's quite a few questions and hard to answer. No, I wasn't aware that that was what my name stood for, but a champion. I'm not sure. Yeah, but definitely in regard to what you said about a Republican colleague, a Republican friend. Yes, I know Senator Tello at my first confirmation hearing said she was going to speak to me about converting me to a Republican. So Tito Smasi.
Thank you. Can you guys hear me? Okay. Senator Tony Ada, do you have any comments or questions?
Thank you, Madam Vice Speaker. Good morning, Mr. Flores. Yeah, thank you for your service in the Youth Congress and also in the board previously, and to your reappointment. I have to agree with Senator Duenas. I do look forward to hopefully one day your nomination coming across and voting on it for a director of an agency. I do see a lot of potential in you. You have a lot of talent that you can share with others. And I believe that if you keep nurturing that talent and you keep, feeding it off onto other folks, that you'll be able to bring up great leaders like yourself. It's leaders like you that is going to lead our island in the future. And that's what we need. We need young, talented leaders to come step forward, because we're not going to be here, throughout the years. But like I said, hopefully I will still be here to support your nomination for a director of an agency. And I look forward for you to being on other boards, or even, like I said, a director or even deputy director. But you have my full support and you have my vote on this confirmation. Thank you, Madam Vice Speaker.
Thank you, Senator Ada. And I do have Senator Joanne Brown. Thank you for joining us. Do you have comments or questions?
Thank you very much, Madam Vice Speaker. Certainly, it's always enlightening to see a very bright young person in our community who's very early on extending their talents and their efforts into their island. I do want to ask a question, though, as he brought up that it's been, and we are aware, it's been a number of years since we've actually had a director for the library system that meets the qualifications and credentials to serve in that capacity. And I just want to get his feedback on what they're looking at with regards to addressing that void that's existed for quite a number of years of having a qualified director serve in that position. And where are they with regards to the recruitment process of hiring a credentialed library director?
Thank you. Nolan?
Senator Brown. Yes, so historically, the library, as I understand, has faced issues with hiring the director library. Firstly, because when we first lost the former director, right, the former director library. So when I say director library, I mean in accordance with the public law, which requires the director of the library to also have a library science degree. Yes, so following that, issues were firstly related to the lack of funding of the position. And that was recently rectified in the 34th and 35th, I believe. So we have had that position funded. However, the challenge then has been finding people with that fulfillment of the public law, right? So having the library science degree. And I can't speak on behalf of the entire board, but in my opinion, professional opinion, or opinion as a board member, that library degree is essential to the operations of the library and just having that institutional knowledge. So I know there have been talks to amend that public law and remove the requirement, but I personally find it necessary for the library's continued offering of services. However, in regard to the current process, I believe we've accepted 2 resumes. So the board is going to look through those resumes. At the last board meeting, we discussed calling a special board meeting to have interviews with those 2 applicants. And then from there, it gets sent to the governor for her approval. And then we can initiate the actual hiring of our selectee. Yeah, I hope that answers the question.
So I know you can't announce who that is at this point to you guys evaluate, but do at least the applicants do they meet these credential requirements?
Yes, Senator. They both have.
Oh, that's good news. That's good news because I mean, it's of course, it's a very important role in the community. And, you know, I think we've all been concerned about the void that's existed for quite a number of years already and not having someone qualified to serve in that position. So we certainly look forward to hearing when you guys make a formal announcement on who the new director of the library system is. And hopefully that will help facilitate your agenda as a board member and having a qualified director that can implement the policies and programs that you and your other board members would like to see within our library system. It's unfortunate, though, that the library system has sort of taken a second or third seat with regards to the attention that it needs, because it provides such an important role, as you mentioned. And Senator Shelton mentioned her time growing up and going to the library. There's a lot of young people that don't have, unfortunately, that kind of structural support within their families, and having a safe place where they can go and learn and experience that outside of the regular school system certainly is something that's needed in the community. So I think we look forward to seeing our libraries expand and open up and be more available as they were back in the day, certainly when we were growing up, for our students out there. So continued success to you. I think you're someone we're going to be looking out for in the future, and continue to build on your skill sets and your capabilities, and certainly your desire to want to continue to help your community, because we actually need more young people like you to make that kind of the difference. Otherwise, you know, we're not as hopeful for the future. And so continued success to you, and congratulations on your continued appointment and your interest in serving the people of Guam. Thank you very much, Madam Vice Speaker.
You're very welcome, Senator Brown. Senator Tello Tadigui, good morning.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity. I'm here, Dolan, and for your support. In fact, I'm actually here at the hospital right now. My father's having eye surgery, but I did not want to miss the opportunity to thank you for being here and continuing to serve. I really appreciate all the hard work that you've done. I knew you were going to do a great job, and you've gone beyond my expectations. And I'm not giving up on the recruiting side of getting you to go to the other side, Nolan. I'm still going to try very hard to do that. And I think that, your thought process and definitely your morals and your aspirations, it's totally saying Republican, Nolan, totally. But anyways, again, you've always had my support. You continue to have my support because I'm so proud of what you've done so far. So I thank you so much for continuing on, and I wish you again the very best, and know that all our doors are always open to helping you move forward with your ambition to get the libraries up and running. So thank you again, and be safe out there.
Thank you very much, Senator Tadegui. Nolan, before we close this part of the public hearing process for your appointment, I just want to say that it truly is a refreshing opportunity to see a young man like you rise up to the occasion, help make a difference. I wasn't kidding when I said you're able to adapt, improvise, and overcome even at the challenging moments. And just hearing you speak today and knowing the credentials you have at a very young age, I know that even if you're not, you don't meet the prerequisites of running for senator, I know that in several years, I think you'll meet that age requirement so you can jump in right away. But I'm just impressed from working with you on the PPI, sharing your experiences going through the university, working with the library, the opportunity for you to write the grants to help the library out. The bookmobile, the opening of the library down in Melesu again, and all the other libraries, that was something that I was raised up when I was going to San Vicente School many, many decades ago, literally walking to the Barrigada Library and spending our time there before Dad came to pick us up, because that was a place where we could do our homework, we could do just everything to get our school assignments done before we headed home. And seeing those places open up again really is just a positive outlook for our children who a lot of times for many years didn't have that opportunity. But you have brought back a fresh perspective, and I truly appreciate that with your team. I want to thank the staff of the library for still believing that yes, we as policymakers do listen. And so good luck in your journey, and good luck in bringing back the libraries, the Guam Public Library system to its full potential, and continue to search for those grants out there. As a board member, I know that getting funding through the general fund has been more difficult than not, especially with the challenges that we're going through. But with the vision that you see and looking out and trying to get resources elsewhere and working on federal grants, that is a plus for you, for the library, and more importantly, to bring the educational awareness of the library to the community. So you've got my full support. I will expeditiously do this so we could make our first session, hopefully in the next week and a half, and that your nomination will be there for voting. So undangkulo na si Zeus Masi. And if there's no other oral testimonies for Mr. Nolan Flores, I will call his appointment for the Guam Public Library System publicly heard. So si Zeus Masi, Mr. Flores. Have a great day. Colleagues, still on the agenda is bill number 31-36 COR, as introduced by Minority Leader James C. Moylan, which is an act to add section 4101.2 to chapter 4 of title 4 Guam Code annotated relative to modernizing a process which would allow for the streamlining in the recruitment and hiring of law enforcement officers to be known as the SWIFT Appointment Modernization Act of 2021. And before I give the author, the main sponsor, an opportunity to open, right after he speaks, I will allow the chief of police. I understand he has a pressing matter that he needs to entertain. So, Mr. Byrne, if it's okay with you, I will allow the chief to speak right after the opening statement of the sponsor. And thank you for your patience. So, Senator Moylan, you have the floor. Minority
Thank
Leader,
you.
please.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair and Vice Speaker, rather, sorry. And also to my colleagues and directors and deputy directors. By the way, I believe it's Deputy Director Bob Camato's birthday as well. So happy birthday to you, Bob. And Shane, welcome too. Thank you for your time. So the SWIFT Appointment Modernization Act, otherwise known as SAM Act of 2021, addresses the recruitment and hiring of GPD, Customs and Quarantine, DOC, and other Category 1 peace officers. We understand that DOA has the requirement of testing and processing and maintaining the merit system per the Organic Act when hiring specifically to these Peace Officer 1. But the legislation, what it does is will allow DOA more of an expeditious process. The 4 areas that we are looking at in this measure is by increasing the listing of applicants 3 times. On the list, instead of 5, make it 15. And then also, second, reducing the appeal period from 10 days to 5 days, from 10 to 5 days. And then also allowing the agencies to continue their interviews, anticipating some uncertainties of lists so that some of the applicants, when they finally get a call, have already found employment and they don't have to wait for a secondary listing to come through. Now, this measure is just for a temporary measure of 2 years, actually. And this measure came about while we were having town hall meetings back in 2019. And the primary concerns back then and still today are law enforcement agencies and their personnel and how to maintain the number of personnel they need in order to perform their duties. We know during prior or post-pandemic that public safety job fairs were well attended with over hundreds of applicants, but yet we continue to have shortfalls. This measure is one of 3 measures that will address filling those shortfalls. I do understand DOA puts a lot of detail and integrity into the merit hiring process. With this measure, we do hope, though, to expedite the process and allow DOA to come up with the changes within 60 days upon implementing this into law. So I thank you, Madam Vice Speaker, and I'm looking forward to the comments during the public hearing. Thank you.
Minority Leader, Senator Moylan. And at this time, because he has a 10 o'clock, Chief Ignacio, please proceed. Good morning, Mananasizuas, Chief.
Good day, Madam Vice Speaker, and half a day, everybody. I am Chief Stephen Ignacio of the Guam Police Department. Good morning, Speaker Terlahi, Senator Cristoenis, Senator Shelton, Senator Ada, Senator Telos, Senator Brown, and that's it. I think everybody else jumped off. And so generally, I would like to provide testimony in support of Bill 31-36 with respect to the 2 provisions which it proposes. So I support the certification list that consists of up to 3 times the number of applicants. As a department head and as a person charged with recruiting new personnel to the Guam Police Department, I found that a certification list limited to the number of applicants plus the rule of 4 is very limiting at time. I'll give an example. I have a current list of 25, but when I got this list, I had 32 approved personnel actions or DG1s. However, because of funding, I was able to only recruit 9. But so if I was to limit that if I was to apply the current rule, I should have a list of 13. But by the time my personnel officer went through the first 13, we found that about 7 of these people did not no longer wished to move forward with the Guam Police Department. They didn't want the job interview. They weren't interested in the job anymore. So had I not gotten a list of 25 and I had a list of 13, I would have had to go back right to the director, Mr. Burns, say, I need a supplemental list. I go through that list again, another 3 or 4 people drop. I have to request another supplemental list because more people have dropped. So expanding the list to 3 times the number, I think would help department heads in the law enforcement community to just go through the list that they have, because it's 3 times the number of openings that they have or funded positions. What I will caution though is that we need to make sure that we apply this list fairly. What I mean is this: if you have a list of 10 and that's the number of positions you're going to be recruiting, but let's say you get 3 times the list, and that says you're going to get a list of 30, then we should first stick to the list going from the top down. In other words, we can't jump from number 1 down to number 30 or number 28 for that matter, because there's no equity then, and it's not based on merit. We're just picking up people wherever we want off of that list. So long as we go down the list numerically based on their score or their ranking, then I think that there's fairness in the recruitment process. And so that's my comment with respect to that provision. The second part that I see this bill trying to address is the appeal period. Now, I understand that we want to reduce it from 5 to 10, and for all intents and purposes, it looks great. However, understanding, and I'm not the expert here, but understanding that the mail system, does take time. I've run across applicants who say that it took them a while to get their notification. I've actually even run into some of my former students who said they never even received a notification, or they never received their mail, or they received it after the 10 days. I would think that we would probably need to keep it at the 10-day period. As we understand, a lot of people have shifted to online. And so now, our mail, or the mail coming out of DOA, these notifications, are competing with all the other mail that is being processed by the U.S. Postal Service. So I'm not sure, I'm not comfortable that reducing it to the 5-day period would allow the applicant time to receive their rating and time to write or notify the Department of Administration that they intend to appeal their rating. And so, Senator Moylan, that was my input for this bill. I thank you for introducing the bill. I think it does go a long way in helping making sure that we do have sufficient lists to recruit from, and making sure also though that we apply the list fairly, so that we go down the list and not jump from one to another because maybe we see a name that piques our interest, to say the least. And so that's all I have. Thank you very much for your time, and I will be submitting written testimony to this effect. And I'm open to any questions before I respectfully request to jump off.
Thank you, Chief. And at that time, I'd like to open up to any of my colleagues without having to go down the list. If you could just raise your hand. I know that the Chief has a 10 o'clock. Senator Telo-Tadigui, please, you may proceed.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity. I just have a real quick question, Chief, for you. Is any funding available to support a swift recruitment of the law enforcement officers as envisioned by Bill 31?
I don't see anything that requires funding for this bill, Senator.
Okay, the reason why I'm asking, because of the swift recruitment of these law enforcement officers, if we're able to get more approved or through the process, is there funding to be able to support them?
I think I would defer that question to Director Byrne, only because the front end of the recruitment process, the certification list, comes from this department. So I'm not sure what the needs are from Mr. Byrne.
Okay, then I'll wait for that question, Madam Chair, for the opportunity to speak with Mr. Burns at that given time. Other than that, I think that I too have a concern with does the proposed 5 business days window for appeals provide enough time? Challenges is to be addressed. I agree with you on that too, Chief. So again, thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Senator Tadegui. Anybody else for Chief Ignacio? If not, Chief, thank you so very much. We appreciate your time coming on this morning, and hope to receive your written testimony on this Bill 31-36. So with that being said, thank you. You may leave.
Thank you, Vice Speaker. Have a good day.
Thank you. At this time, I'm going to go ahead first and acknowledge, I think the deputy, Mr. Vincent Paris from Customs and Quarantine is also with us here this morning. So thank you for joining us. I will go ahead and yield over now to Director Ed Byrne for your oral testimony, please.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Thank you for inviting us to this hearing. This is the first hearing of the 36th legislature that DOA has had the privilege of attending. So we look forward to working with the 36th legislature over the next 2 years. DOA basically supports this bill, and certainly the provision A, which is the certification list being expanded, and provision C, which is the kind of uninterrupted list, has our full support. In common with Chief Ignacio, we also share some concerns about reducing the appeal period from 10 days to 5 days, basically for the reasons that he quoted. We are doing our best to make the whole process paperless. We're not there yet. I mean, I should add that means paperless for all civil service recruitment. We're not there yet, and we have had more than one instance when the appeal was late because the appellant claimed that they didn't receive their rating until after the date that it was due to be submitted. We support an efficient process for recruitment, and in particular for recruitment of public enforcement employees. As Senator Moylan commented in his introduction, DOA views the merit system as almost sacrosanct. We are very keen that the merit system achieves its goal and does exactly that within government of Guam, we recruit people of merit, people that will stay within the government for the whole of their careers because they have a career pattern ahead of them, and that we get the best applicants coming in and being content and eager to work within the government. There obviously is a trade-off between the merit system, which some might seem to be slow and pedestrian, and efficiency. DOA is committed and will continue to be as efficient as we can within the recruitment of all employees, and in particular these law enforcement employees, because they come in bigger lumps than and lumps is not a terribly good word, but that's what it means. We get more applicants at a single time for law enforcement than for other agencies. So other than the issue with the reduction of the appeal period, even though we note, and I should note that this legislation that's proposed has a sunset date, we are concerned about reducing the appeal period, and we also feel there might be pressure from non-law enforcement recruits also to have their appeal period reduced. So other than that, we fully support this proposed legislation, and we're committed to work with the law enforcement agencies and the legislature to bring about this more efficient process.
Thank you, Mossy. Mr. Byrne. Next to speak, I'm going to go ahead and address the Deputy of the Department of Corrections, Mr. Robert Camacho. Please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair and all the senators. Director Joe Carbolito had submitted a written testimony already, and we're just going to add that we are in support of the bill. And yeah, whatever Mr. Burns stated earlier, and Chief Ignacio regarding the reducing it to 5 days instead of 10, and we have the same thing. You know, sometimes people don't get their mail till later on, and then they might have questions about that. I guess we want to state also that we are so appreciative of DOA, because we understand how many applicants that have to be reviewed. I mean, take for instance, you know, for customs or for GFD or what have you. Sometimes there's over 1,000 applicants. So that process alone, going through that, each application is, you know, very overwhelming. So I'm not sure how quickly that can be accomplished without additional personnel at DOA. And I guess that's something that Director Burns will have to address. But in order for it to be processed quickly, I would think they would need more personnel. And the issue regarding supplements, you know, that has been a long-standing issue for many years. We had a post-commission meeting last week, and everybody across the board said the same thing from what I already have heard testimony. One of the things that has not been mentioned is the written test. There's like 70% don't pass. And from what I got from some of the testimonies from the representative from DOA, the past post meetings, is that even people with degrees and master's degrees don't pass it. So it's a good thing, but so you know, we got to look at that and see what is it exactly. I've never taken a test, you know, after 30 some years, you know, I've never had to do that, but something we have to look at and see what is it about that test. And is there a prerequisite, maybe look at it, if the person has a degree, could that be looked at as bypassing a reading or writing test or a math test or what have you? Same thing, if they went to the Criminal Justice Academy, which has math and report writing and what have you, could that be considered something that as a pre-qual already? So that in itself, if we're disqualifying people at 70% of not passing the test, you know, we've got to look at that more closely. I'm not sure what the answer would be. The post-commission, of course, wants to expedite everything, but at the same time, we want to maintain the quality of the candidates, right? We want everybody to be able to read and write, which has been a huge problem for the many years. The Attorney General's office even came to who also is represented at the post-commission meeting, said that sometimes when these police officers turn in, or law enforcement officers turn in their reports, they're unable, the reports are, substandard. So again, there must be a balance somewhere. But we are in full support of everything. I think we just have to look at maybe instead of 10 days or 5 days, go to 7 days, something as a compromise. Or have the notification certified so that if he does receive it, it's already, acknowledges. I'm not sure. But that's all I have.
Thank you, Deputy Director Camacho. Before we proceed with customs, I'd like to just ask you, I acknowledged you as the Deputy of DOC, but you also spoke on behalf of the Post Commission. So if I may, I'd like to ask you for the record, if you're speaking on behalf of just DOC or DOC in the Post, and maybe just something in reference to the Post Commission, and if you can just acknowledge who the members are, please, Deputy Camacho.
Well, the Post Commission consists of all the law enforcement agencies, with Guam Police Department, GFD, Customs, Parks and Rec, Conservation, Airport Police, and Port Police, and all the other law enforcement agencies. The AG's office is also there. And the marshals, the probation office, they're all there. And so I am the Post Commission Director also. So the chairman is Chief Stephen Ignacio, and Melanie Brennan is the vice chair. So I'm speaking also on behalf of the Post Commission. Since I'm pretty much I'm the administrator of the Post Commission.
Thank you, Deputy Director Camacho. I wanted to note that for the record, because it's very crucial that you speaking in your statements earlier in reference to the desires of the Post, that be included. And I appreciate you saying, sharing with our members a refresher course and who all the members of the Post Commission are. So thank you, and I will duly note that in the committee report. So appreciate the statement this morning. Next, colleagues on the to speak, I will offer it to Deputy Vincent Paris from Customs and Quarantine. Please proceed.
Good morning. Thank you, Honorable Senator Terlai, Senator Muña Barnes, Senator Moylan, and the other honorable senators who are here. I apologize if my internet, it kind of goes in and out, but first and foremost, I would like to just say the agency is in full support of Bill 31-36. So some of the things that we run into is that from the time that you submit a GG1 for vetting, and then it goes down to DOA for final processing, there's a time lag. And so there's also a time lag and of course, understandably so, when you're going to vet like 1,000 applicants. So just to make a long story really short, by the time we got the first initial list for this one cycle, the 11th cycle, it was around the 25th of July, 2018. By the time we had our first set of initial recruits report, it was April 29, 2019. So obviously there's going to be some hiccups along the way, but I think that extending this list by 3 times the number would allow greater flexibility in being able to get more applicants vetted, because as both Chief Ignacio and Mr. Camacho have mentioned, you go through this process and then you eliminate some. And so there's going to be some back and forth. And so if you have to go, you use a list and the list expires, sometimes our experience is that they go back to a list beforehand and you already kind of vetted that and you're trying to move on. So I will just hazard to say that this bill, if it comes into fruition, and I don't see any issues with any changes on the appeal time. The appeal time, I think, would still stay. I mean, it would help if you reduce the number of days. However, if you leave that in the bill, I don't see it as being an issue. So I just wanted to put my full support from Customs behind this bill. And also, I attend the post meetings, and we did discuss this, and we are all in full support of this bill. So this concludes my testimony on Bill 31-36. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Deputy Director Perez. I'm going, before I yield to Senator Tello Tadigui's question earlier, I just wanted to ask the Department of Administration's Director, Ed, now if the effective date is upon enactment, but the end date is on September 30th, 2023. Would there be a problem if that date gets deleted? Or is there a significance on the end date? Or could it be continuous? Just leave it alone and delete the 2023 mark time. Would there be an impact there, Ed?
Thank you, Vice Speaker. Not from DOA. I think, in fact, a sunset date, I think I understand why it was introduced into the bill, but a sunset date might fall afoul of these extended lists. So I think we would agree that probably it should be deleted.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And before I go to Speaker Talahi, I will yield to Senator Tadegui because she asked an earlier question, and I'll allow Senator Tadegui to ask that question now. Senator Tadegui, please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Byrne, I asked earlier the Chief of Police about the funding for this, and we all know the bill. What the bill does is it brings in more recruits, gets them through the process so that we can hire them. So once we do that, we're going to have to fund these recruits. So does Department of Public Health, I'm here at the hospital. Okay. Does the GPD have the funding needed in the event these recruits get through as expeditiously as possible, that we have the funding for them?
Okay, thank you, Senator. The responsibility for how departmental funds are spent are in the end the responsibility of that department's director, and in this case, the Chief of Police. However, in the budget for 2022, which is probably the budget that's going to be impacted most by any provision that's in this legislation, was submitted to the Speaker on Saturday. There is funding in there for recruitment. The actual sources of funds for the GPD are all local. It's a mixture of general fund and special funds. We all acknowledge the pressure that we're currently experiencing because of economic conditions, particularly on special funds. But yes, the short answer is yes, there is funding for some recruitment by GPD.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Byrne. Thank you, Madam Chair, for the opportunity.
Thank you, Senator Tadegui. Therese Talahi, you're acknowledged at this time.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and thank you to those who testified. Very helpful testimony. Answered most of my questions, except I just have one more remaining, and that is so how would you ensure that, as the Chief of Police stated, that this is implemented fairly, that these extended lists, that they actually do go, in order of selection, and how would you ensure that? Or were the shorter lists designed to protect from jumping around on the lists? And what are your thoughts on that, Mr. Byrne? Let me start with you.
Yes, thank you, Senator. With your permission, with the permission of Chair, my Personnel Services Administrator is also attending, Shane Nakata. And if it's okay, if it's possible, I'd like to get him to respond to that question.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Mr. Ingrata. Madam Chair, is that all right?
Yes, definitely. Please, Shane.
Thank you. Yes, good morning, everyone. So to clarify with the question, the shorter list was designed for your regular everyday recruitments of critical positions, your non-law enforcement positions, and it's guided by the rule of 5, right? So it's the HR principle behind fair recruiting, increasing the amount of of names that you give for the vacancies. We can ensure that through the provisions in the statute that allow us the flexibility to make sure through policy that agencies follow the ranking that is given to them. And thus, when returning lists or names of individuals which they did not select, showing proof that they did follow that list and they did make an attempt to schedule people for interviews and things like that. So there is flexibility for us to make sure that departments are on the up and up, like the chief said, and that they show us that they made the effort to follow it. Now, it'll come down to if there are hiccups, like the deputy chief from Customs said, there are hiccups along the way. There's always scheduling issues or people not returning calls. So I believe the policy will allow us to be flexible enough to implement this practically, I guess, especially with all the restrictions with COVID-19 going through. So in general, if the bill goes through the way it is, I believe DOA has the flexibility to ensure that it is fair.
Would DOA be able to catch it in time if it was not?
Yes, and that's all those decisions are made, and then there's other processes that the law enforcement agencies have to go through as far as background checks. Even when they make a selection, they're still vetting after the selection. So if something comes up within the review of the names that are selected, we can always catch it basically and work with the departments to rectify any issues.
All right, great. Thank you, Shane. So my final question, Madam Chair, is so if this process is good, why would we not want to extend the list for all employees? Why would we limit it to just law enforcement employees?
Senator, as I said in my opening remarks, this is particularly effective for law enforcement because of the length of the lists. Typically, we don't get such long lists for other types of recruitment. Last year there was a kind of open forum for law enforcement recruitment, which had over 1,000 people there. As most of the chiefs have reported during this morning's hearing, there is quite a fallout from that list that initially gets presented. That isn't typical of other types of recruitment, and I suspect that the process might get a little out of hand, and indeed in that case extended if we adopted that provision for non-law enforcement lists. So that would be the reason why I would suggest that we certainly would, if this bill were enacted, we would look at the process and make sure that it was as efficient as possible. And if we thought that that could be extended to other lists, then we would so suggest. But at the moment, those are the reasons why we suggest that we just keep it to the agencies listed in this bill.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I'm thinking instead of based on how long, the interest list is, it might be based on how hard the positions are to fill or how many positions you need to fill. So, but I appreciate your testimony and that you will be looking at that going forward. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Speaker Terlahi. Before I yield to the Legislative Secretary, I'm going to ask the sponsor of the bill if he has any questions for any of those who presented testimony. Senator Moylan, I will recognize you as the main sponsor of the bill.
Thank
Any
you.
questions?
No questions. I'd like to just continue on, please. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Legislative Secretary, any comments or questions?
Thank you very much, Madam Vice Speaker. My questions too were answered, but I am curious, Mr. Byrne, how many appeals do you receive, or what is the average?
Shane, would you like to respond to that?
Sure. As far as the average, if we're talking specifically about the law enforcement positions that we hire in bulk, a lot of the appeals at the phase that this bill is looking to address, we may get, if you're looking into hundreds of applicants, anywhere from 5 to 20 appeals. Part of the issue isn't so much receiving the appeal, it's the amount of legwork it takes to address the appeal. So if there's specific things that applicants are appealing, then it does take the same staff that are vetting these applications through the regular process to take a stop from that, go back and look at every point that an applicant brings up and to address it formally in writing so that we can move on with the rest of the process. So that's the biggest issue. The number of appeals, not so much, mostly how much time it takes in to vet each appeal.
I see. Okay. Thank you very much, Shane, for that information. Thank you also, Mr. Byrne, for your time today.
Thank you, Legislative Secretary. Next, I have Senator Duenas. Any questions or comments?
No questions, Madam Chair. It's very informative. I'd like to just thank all the officials who were here this morning, law enforcement, as well as DOA. It looks like things are moving forward, and this bill is going to help improve things. So thank you, Madam Vice Speaker.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Duenas. Senator Toniata. Uncle Tony, you may proceed.
No questions, Madam Vice Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Joanne Brown.
Thank you very much, Madam Vice Speaker. I just wanted to ask perhaps if Shane can elaborate just in terms of the number of applicants. Have they seen any increase or decrease with regards to that? You know, the police chief had mentioned that in his particular case, he had a number of the applicants that by the time I guess they got around to scheduling for them to go through an interview, they had decided to decline participating or moving forward with employment with the Guam Police Department. So I just wanted to find out, is that delay part of the reason, or do you think, do we have a decrease in interest of applicants applying for these law enforcement positions? Is it affected by the time, or just the number of applicants that have an interest in working for law enforcement, be it, DOC or Guam Police Department or whichever law enforcement entity they're interested in applying for? What are you seeing with regards to the trend to that?
Senator, thank you for the question. I think it's a combination of all those factors. When we had the job fair for law enforcement, there were a lot of applicants, and you did see more applicants for certain agencies, right? And so at that point, by the time it gets around for a department to call an applicant for interview, typically, yeah, a lot of them do get employment elsewhere in the time that they're waiting, or they may have, seen headlines or anything like that that may have dissuaded them to continue their process. But competition between other vacancies in the government also play a role. So if there's other positions being announced that may not be as risky of a job as being in law enforcement or public safety, but maybe pay around the same, or they have the credentials for other jobs that they can qualify for, they'll definitely go that way. But with the higher numbers of applicants for these positions, on average, we'll probably end up with a list anywhere from, I'm thinking of GPD as I'm talking 75 to 200 applicants. And out of that, they may whittle it down and exhaust the list because maybe a quarter to half of them may have decided not to go forward with the recruitment process for all those reasons that you described. So yeah, it does weigh down on some of the agencies. as far as the effort that goes into doing it and I guess the lack of interest in the end to it. But yes, the testing process, the recruitment process, and all the other factors do weigh into that decision, I think.
Well,
Senator,
I certainly,
if I may
go
add to
ahead,
that.
go ahead.
So I'm sorry to interrupt. If I may add to that, I'm very interested in why people apply or withdraw their applications, especially in the law enforcement area. I was at that recruitment seminar last year, and one of the applicants was asked, why did he apply for this job? And the response was, well, my parents made me. So the people's career choices and their approach varies, and as Shane said, it may vary or wax or wane over the period of the recruitment. But we obviously want to get the committed people into government service.
Well, I appreciate that. Probably parents wanting their children to get a job and not depend on their allowance. But I certainly hope that by shortening the time frame, this will help facilitate getting the interested parties that want to work for the government and law enforcement, because I think you have to have a very special calling, no doubt, in order to pursue this type of work. So I hope certainly with the passage of this legislation that will help reduce the time frame. So that we can, because most people can't sit around forever waiting to see if they're going to get a call. I mean, they have bills and other obligations and certainly family to take care of. So I certainly hope this will shorten the period so we can get more of these qualified people on board. Thank you very much, Madam Vice Speaker. Appreciate the time to allow me to ask these questions.
Thank you, Senator Brown. And I did see Senator Titigui's hand raised, so I will acknowledge her for a follow-up, right? You have a follow-up, Senator Titigui? You may proceed.
Yes, Madam Chair. Thank you for the opportunity. I wanted to ask Shane a question. How long does it normally take for law enforcement agencies to fill these vacancies currently now? And if the bill were to pass into law, how much shorter would it be then? Can you kind of explain? For Shane.
Yes, good morning. If we're looking at the part of the process that the bill is addressing, I don't know if we can peg an average time for law enforcement agencies to finish this process, only because depending on the agency and their availability to resources to do background checks and everything like that, and get the academies squared away with the post commission and GCC, there's a lot that goes into their timing. So with this, I think if we're trying to quantify the impact it'll have on the process, we'd probably want to look at it more of an approach of it helps them. For instance, if we take a look at increasing the number of names they get at this point, if their policy is to do a initial quick background check of all the applicants to see if there's any flags that pop up, that can be done for more people at a single time. And that may cut down that process by a third, if anything. So that's kind of where we're looking at that. As far as the other parts that are in play, I think there's a provision in there talking about going back to a list of where they left off. Let's say if an applicant were to drop out of a cycle after being selected, I think that administrative process being tweaked will help a department go further down the list. Take, for instance, if they had already done all their background checks, selected applicants, put them in the cycle, and an applicant drops out while they're in the academy. If this provision goes through, then they would be able to continue interviews. Let's say if they stopped at applicant number 40, they'd be able to continue from there. Whereas in the rule, in its original form, dictates that they go back up to the top and start with applicant 1. So, things like that help them practically move forward quicker when processing their recruitments on their end, and helps us help them move along basically from where they were at. So as far as number of days, it really depends on what kind of resources they have available to move forward.
So Shane, thank you for that. And good morning to you as well. It's always good to see you, Shane. And I appreciate every time I have a question, I call you, that you respond very quickly. Greatly appreciate that. It helps us. So I'm just looking at so when I asked about a time on how long it takes, with everything in place, to recruit an individual in public safety area.
Mhm.
So you're saying, you can't really give me a time frame, so it would take about 6 months to get an individual in to be working as a police officer or customs agent, about 6 months. And if this were to be if this law were to pass, and we're looking more like it would only take 5 months, something like that is what I'm kind of looking at. Just a guesstimate.
Okay, and I'll try to guesstimate as much as possible, but to help answer the question with the law enforcement agencies that are here, and I think Chief Perez from Customs kind of drew a pretty good snapshot of the process. If they have everything in place, and let's take your example of 6 months, if they usually take 6 months to do it, yes, we would think that 5 months would be feasible, but we're looking at more so 4 months, something like that, cutting it in that percentage of time. And that's just because they're allowed to do more with more names, and they're allowed to cut down on how long they have to wait to do their interviews. So that's kind of where it'll help them.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you, Madam Chair, for the opportunity.
Thank you, Senator Chadegui. And if there's no one else wishing to speak, I will allow the main sponsor to close on his bill if he has any questions or comments before I do my closing remarks. So Senator Moylan, you are recognized at this time.
Thank you, Madam Vice Speaker, and thank you to the panel. As a former peace officer myself, I look forward for this bill to move forward. I think we heard really good testimony to help us improve this bill, and we heard testimony really in favor of this bill from our directors and deputy directors at GPD and Department of Corrections and Customs and Quarantine, and also the post report also in favor of this bill too. So, Madam Vice Speaker, I'm looking forward to assisting in expediting this bill's process so we can get to session floor after all the committee reports are completed. I'm looking forward to 3136 hopefully enacted to law, and we can get the SAM Act going to help our fellow peace officers. Thank you to the panel again. Thank you to my colleagues. Appreciate it very much. Jesus Masi.
Thank you, Senator Moylan. And in that vein, as one who swiftly put this onto the public hearing agenda, I hope to get support for your approval for co-sponsorship to this bill, and my colleagues who would like to be a part of this effort. I think it's important that if we can afford the opportunity for DOA to do its part and work closely with the law enforcement agencies to give them that opportunity to look at a greater list and all that. I think for me, my issue would be at least revisiting the enactment sunset provision that could possibly be deleted. And then also if we had to work a compromise from the 10 days to the 5, maybe a compromise as suggested to maybe 7 days. So that's something that the committee will look at, but further work with the committee members and the author of the bill. So I hope that I could have my colleagues from my committee membership, and if they have any concerns to that they can immediately send their comments my way, so I could try and get this bill onto session agenda. And if there are no other remarks, Sizus Masi Todos Hamzu, if there's no one else left to testify, the public hearing on the appointment of Nolan G.T. Flores to serve as a member of the student representative of the Guam Public Library System Board of Directors and Bill number 31-36 DOR as introduced by Senator Minority Leader James C. Moylan, again, which is an act to add section 4101.2 to chapter 4 of Title 4 Guam Code annotated relative to the modernizing a process which would allow for the streamlining in the recruitment and hiring of law enforcement officers to be known as the SWIFT Appointment Modernization Act of 2021, which is SAM. It has been publicly heard, And anyone else who's listening in the public would like to present written testimony, they could do so by emailing it to Senator Muña Barnes at guamlegislature.org, or you can hand deliver it or mail it to 163 Chalon Santo Papa, Hagatna, Guam 96910. And so there's nothing else further. This public hearing has been duly heard with the above agenda, and it is now 10:31. This public hearing is now adjourned. Siduos Masi for all of you guys taking your time and patience to hear these items on the agenda. Sana Masi. Adios.